as we're all walking through something that we've never dealt with before. So I really appreciate Ken, his participation in that every day, and of course his participation today. And then down at the bottom of the screen is Waldo Smith from another North Carolinian. So Waldo, how are you doing? Why don't you give a little introduction?
Doing great. Good to be here. So I'm actually at the northern part of North Carolina, about 25, 30 minutes north of Greensboro, going straight up towards the Virginia line in the small town of Reedsville. Been in the locksmith industry. I have been doing locksmithing work for 26 years, but as far as doing it for myself and as a legitimate business, I started in 2010, and I've been moving forward with that ever since. And we up here, we service, all of Rockingham County, all the surrounding counties in the area. And we've also, in the last year, have also branched into Virginia. So that's a new avenue for us. So we are continuing to look at other avenues and places as we're continuing to grow. But right now, that's where we stand as far as where we're at, as far as a company and what we do. We do almost practically provide almost every type of service there is, from home, residential, commercial, automotive, and we're working on the alarm security aspect as well. That unfortunately we'll talk obviously a little bit about that. That's been sort of on the back burner a little bit because of the situation in hand, but we'll get into some of those things, I'm sure.
Yeah, most definitely. I appreciate you being here today as part of the conversation. Waldo, size of your company, just to give us a little bit of context to those that are joining the call today.
So we are not a very large company. Right now we are at 5 employees. We were actually at 7.
Yeah.
Due to the slowdown, we had to kick back a little bit, and we'll talk a bit about that and what that's all about. But right now we are a company of 5. We have basically 3 full-time field techs, which would include myself. So me, my brother-in-law, and Michael and Nick. So we're all 3 field techs. Then we have our management crew, which would be Megan and my wife, Allison.
Very cool. We appreciate that introduction there. Just for context, so I think the folks that are watching and going to be connecting with and chatting on the call today will be just understanding different sizes of companies so they can understand how that's impacted, and obviously also region. So we're all in the East Coast region. Last week we had a Canadian on, and we had some folks from Minnesota and Texas, I believe. So just trying to cover different parts of the country and understand how that's impacted. What have you seen, Waldo, and then we'll toss back to Ken. What have you seen, Waldo, as far as, you said the slowdown, obviously you've had to, I guess, let 2 people go, lay off 2 people. What does that look like in terms of numbers for you, a percentage?
All right. So right off the bat, we have 2 locations as like physical shops. So we practically shut those 2 locations down. We're doing what we do now, instead of actually, because we don't really have traffic coming through due to businesses shutting down all around us. So with that, we do appointments only. And with that, the availability and the it limits us a lot with the number of people we have versus being in the shop all the time. But with that, 2 of the people we just hired were helping us to expand into Danville area. So they were just trained, they were just learning. So they weren't able to really help the company at the moment with what we were doing to expand when this hit. So unfortunately, they had to, hopefully they will get to bring them back, but there's no guarantees or promises at this moment until we see exactly how this all pans out. But as far as that goes, it really, as far as numbers and percentages go, it cut our income maybe about in half.
Okay.
Just like that, by shutting it off. And so with that, we had to make some adjustments. But we are seeing things, I think things are actually starting to slowly turn around. I don't know if it's a stimulus thing or not, but there's a lot more people calling this week than we had the last couple of weeks. So it seems like things may be starting to turn around a little bit.
So I want to jump back to that because that is something that we were having a conversation about earlier. Ken, same kind of question to you. What are you seeing in terms of volume? I mean, you said 7 different locations, so you've got a lot of different traffic to deal with and a lot of employees. So what are you seeing in your area?
So currently we're seeing about 30% decrease in business. Our main focus is trying to keep everybody on staff and on payroll. Even though it's 50 staff members that we have, that equates to 150, 200 people in people's families that we're responsible for. So
Right.
it's a big responsibility, and we're just trying to keep everybody going. Like I
Hmm.
said, it's down about 30%. We used to do a lot of restaurant work, and because they're closed, um, that's slowed down. Surprisingly, though, even though we have a stay-at-home mandate in the state of Florida, we're still seeing a lot of people come in the store, which is surprising. Our store sales are staying pretty stable.
Yeah, as part of our daily call, one of the other folks that are on the call regularly is Gary Baldino. He and his brother have, I think, 16 retail locations up in the Virginia kind of DC area, and he's said the same thing. A lot of their retail traffic has pretty much maintained the same throughout the process. Going back to kind of what you were saying, Waldo, and Ken the same, and before we got on the call, we were talking with Travis from HL Flake down in Texas, and he had mentioned something very similar. It seems like there's a lot more just physical activity happening this week. The traffic patterns are increasing, like more cars on the road. You're starting to see more people out. Is that what you're referring to, Waldo, that you're seeing that? And then we can ask Ken the same.
Yes, I think there's probably a couple of reasons for this. I think people are maybe not as scared at the moment, maybe starting to get out a little bit more, or stir crazy. They got to get out, and people are becoming more active. Number two, I think also maybe we're getting a lot more automotive calls, so we feel like maybe some of the stimulus money might be getting out there that are getting people, because we're having more calls for cars, dealers calling us for keys for cars. So we believe that obviously something is stirring, and I really think a lot of it has to do with that the just in our area. So to give you a little bit of context of our area, you guys are in much bigger areas. We're in a small town of about 20,000 people. You guys are in big towns where there's lots of traffic. In our town, when all the restaurants, everything around us, they all had to close. So we have absolutely no foot traffic whatsoever, except for the folks who want to call and maybe set up an appointment. Where I think in the bigger cities, that seems to not maybe be quite so much the case. Now I could be wrong. Ken can probably give a little input on that, and you as well down there in Charlotte, because I'm not really sure how you guys areas are being affected as far as that goes.
Most definitely. Ken, what are you seeing any traffic pattern increases on your area?
It's interesting. The guys are having a real nice time running service calls because there's not a lot of traffic, so they're happy about that. But I wouldn't say that we're seeing volume. I agree with Waldo, though. I think people are going stir crazy in their houses and trying to get out a little bit more, but we're still under a stay-at-home order. So if people are not paying attention to that, then this thing, we're not going to get past it. So I hope they're staying at home, but
Cool. It looks like we have a new someone joining us, another guest on the round table. Stacy Heckler. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Hetchler is close enough. Close
Hetzler.
enough.
Thank you for being
Yes.
here today, and you're with KeyPro down in Texas, correct?
Yeah, down almost dead center in the center of Texas. Yep.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you joining us today. We were just kind of getting started here, but if you want to give us a little bit of introduction as to who you are and kind of the size of your business and the coverage area that you have.
Well, I'm not my actual locksmith business isn't terribly large. It's actually just me, and I keep an apprentice with me in the truck all the time. I do a lot of volume because I'm primarily an auction locksmith. So I get up in the morning and I go from I have basically 5 auctions that I have to visit weekly, and of course that's slowed down a little bit right now, but you know. Volume wise, we've dropped down. I'd say probably in the last 2 weeks, we've probably dropped down. I'd say down to about 30% of what we were.
Gotcha. You dropped, so you've dropped 70%.
Right. Yes. I mean, yes, I'm down.
Wow.
Yes, we were down to about 30. Yeah. Yeah. So we were going, so say 3 weeks ago, our average day, we'd be running from 7 in the morning until typically 5, 6 p.m. And we were clearing, myself and my guy in my truck with me, going from auction to auction. We were clearing, probably 30, 35 cars every day for, it's been, honestly, I was starting to complain, to be honest with you, because I was complaining to my guy because it's like, man, I just need a break. I mean, it's 30, 40 cars a day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and honestly looking for a break. I may have gotten exactly what I asked for, unfortunately.
That's been the case with a lot of folks. I think that's typical in our industry as well, where I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about the fact that in our industry, it's very common for us to say, hey, we're so busy that we can't even hardly get to what we have, much less look for new and additional opportunities. And that's fine until it stops, right? And so now that it's stopped is, okay, how do we adapt? How do we pivot? What is the way that we can make the best of this situation? One of the things that we've been saying around here is, how do we make lemonade? We've all been served up a bunch of lemons. Now what are we going to do to make lemonade out of it and continue to evolve and develop through this process? So appreciate you, Stacy. Appreciate you joining us and giving us a little bit of introduction. So we've been talking a little bit about, over the past couple of episodes of this live roundtable, just about kind of how this is impacting markets and how it's impacting business. And then the big thing about this is, and the constant theme is, what are we going to do during this time to evolve, to get better, and to come out of this and come out of this in a better situation than we went into it. So what is this? The coronavirus, COVID-19, the pandemic that has come through the nation, how has it changed your perspective on your business and how you want to grow your business or build your business once things get back to a kind of a new normal and society is back to a new normal? What are you looking at in ways that you want to build your business differently than you have in the past? I'll toss to Ken first up in the top left-hand corner, and then we'll go Waldo and then Stacy.
Yeah, so what we've been doing during the slow time is having our guys do a lot of training. Us Abloy and Legion have both put out a tremendous amount of material on the internet. Flake is doing live training a couple of days a week. So we're trying to take as much advantage of that as we can. And then on the other side, we're revamping our website, working on marketing material, stuff we've talked about on the 4 o'clock roundtable, just so that when we do come out of it on the other side, we can attack it quick, and our guys are up to speed on new products and get to it.
Most definitely. Waldo, what are your thoughts on this? What you've learned through kind of walking into this and now having to adapt, and what do you think the future looks like?
So a couple of things for us. One is understanding that I don't know if this applies for a lot of business or not. I'm not really sure. I am fairly new to the entrepreneurial scene as far as growing a business. When it comes to that, being debt free is a huge thing. With that, it gives us a little bit of leverage and flexibility versus if we were in mountains of debt over everything that we have, trying to keep things afloat. Right now, we're still having to pay rent and insurances and bills and things that are coming in, but the influx of the money has slowed a bit. So, we've sort of built a little cushion that's going to help us, help that. But also, and I think it's going to be mentioned at some point, but we also applied for the PPP. as well as that goes. And if that comes through, then we're going to bring everybody back. And just like with Ken and his guys, we're going to really heavily just attack training, just training left and right, being able to spend more time with everyone while it's sort of slow to get them up to speed. But as I was telling you earlier, the last couple of days, the phones have really started picking up. And my manager called a few minutes ago and said it is just going bananas. And she's like, she's going to have everybody on staff, pretty much on staff tomorrow. So we don't know exactly how this works. But coming out of this, really just, I don't really know what the new norm is going to be. I don't think none of us really know exactly what the new norm will be. But if it comes back out and goes back to 100% normal, just really being prepared in advance for anything coming down the road that could happen. Just continuing to build upon financial stability and not being in debt, so we can carry our crew through when the next event comes. And really marketing, just keeping in touch with our customer base as far as that goes. I think that's a huge thing that will help out a lot. It's just really, that's something that I'm not used to.
Sure.
Is putting myself out there on marketing avenues and Facebook and making videos and talking to people. Something I'm having to develop and learn and to do, and my staff. And so we're actually, the last couple of weeks, we've been very proud. We post something every day. So we've been very proactive about that and just touching our customers one way or another during this time. And then when we come out, I think we're going to be a lot stronger because of that.
Very, very good. Very good. Stacy, what are you seeing? What are you thinking coming out of this?
I only do automotive, as most of y'all know. It's going to be interesting. Coming out of this, if we're talking coming out of this, I talked to a repossession agent yesterday who I've known for 2 decades, and this talk of 120-day moratorium on repossession for vehicles. I don't honestly even know how that would work, to be honest with you. I don't know how the finance companies, I don't know how the repossession industry is going to turn back on if they're literally going to shut everything off for 6 months after the pandemic or after the epidemic is over. They're talking 6 months after that. I don't know how it's going to work. For me personally, I'm doing the same thing you guys are doing on a smaller scale. I'm forcing my guy and then some of my people that kind of satellite around me. I'm forcing them to come to me on jobs that they normally wouldn't pay attention to because it would be just so high end that I would just do it myself. And I make them sit through it and I go, this is the steps. And when I'm not around and I'm taking a day off during the week. I've been doing this 25 some odd years, and I'm taking 1 day off a week. So that's how it's changed for me.
Understood. I appreciate that. So, kind of get into some of the topics that we have on our agenda for today. And you mentioned PPP, Waldo, and I know that Ken has applied for that. We have applied for that as well. It sounds like you have also, Waldo. Stacy, have you applied for any of the government funding?
No, I haven't. The subject's come up a couple of times in the last week or so, but I'm not sure. I have some personal. I think I've got a personal issue with it. I think I'm not sure that's gonna. I mean, maybe that helps me short term. Maybe it doesn't. But what does it do to me long term, and what does it do to the government long term? What does it do to all of us long term? I have some concerns there. So I'm still very much on the fence, leaning towards probably not going to apply.
Very, very fair. Yeah, very fair. And that's part of the conversation, is to understand different perspectives on it. So, Waldo, I know you mentioned that you've applied for that, or you are applying for it. What is your current status with that?
So we got everything sent in Friday a week ago. So we were told that we would hear something within a week. So hopefully we hear something by tomorrow. I was also in line with Stacy as far as reservations. I went and did a lot of research into it before I decided to make the decision to do it. And because once I learned the ins and outs and a little bit about it, which even though I understand as much as I understand, I'm sure I don't understand it fully.
Sure.
But I took the chance. With it, so we got two options if we get it. Like I said, if we get it, we're going to bring everybody back on. We're going to just heavily train and work with that. If we don't get it, we don't get approved for it because the money's ran out or whatever, we're going to sort of continue to play it by ear. We actually had a meeting this morning where we talked how we're going to stagger our staff in order to meet the needs of the company and our customers that are calling in. But as things change, as things pick up, then we're going to be getting people back on board full time as quick as possible.
Ken, what are your thoughts on this situation?
So we applied for it the first day on what was it, April 3rd, and then the bank's been playing some games, asking for more documentation back and forth. But we did get noticed on Tuesday that the bank had approved everything and we're sending it to the SBA for a loan number. We haven't heard anything back since then, but I did get an email this morning saying that the SBA had definitely run out of money as of today. So we don't know if we got in under the cutoff or not good news. But so we don't know if we got in before or after they ran out, or if there's going to be more funding coming down the line.
Sure. And I think at the end of the day, any business is looking at this from a logical standpoint of you don't want to have to take on additional debt to do this, and everybody's kind of hedging their bets on the forgiveness component of it. And again, Stacy, I think to your point, this is very reminiscent back to the recession and the economic issues back in 2008, 2009, and the bailouts for the large car manufacturers and how that impacted a lot of things. And so I know there's a lot of question marks around it. And I think what everybody is sitting here looking at is, at the end of the day, either way, either side of the situation that you're on is trying to figure out what do you do going forward to make sure that that's not something that you have to worry about in the future. So there's ways to do that through market diversification, and I know that's one of the things that we can talk about on here. I do want to kind of move that conversation forward a little bit from a marketing perspective. This is something that we've chatted about in the past, and I think Waldo alluded to it earlier, but marketing messages to your customers. So sitting here and we're all having this conversation, and there's folks that are watching online, I'm sure all across the country, and thinking through, okay, is this a time when I pull back my marketing message and I stop and I don't communicate with my prospective customers or my existing customers, or is this a time that I'm going to ramp up and make that message even stronger and try to branch out into new options? So what are the thoughts on that? We'll start with Waldo on kind of how you're seeing that and what your plans are.
So I think personally, I believe it's good to keep a constant contact with your customer base, just so they don't forget you or anything like that. Plus, just being able to put out their tips and tricks and things for them to do while they're at home. Also continuing to just be a positive influence in the community with what you're putting out there. And I think people will remember that, and we'll come back to that. But it's just keeping that constant contact with your customer base. So when things do come back around, or if something happens right now, they haven't forgotten you because you're keeping a constant contact, where other folks, if they don't keep in constant contact or keep putting themselves out there, they're liable to be forgotten for a little bit. And I don't think that's, unless you want to not do anything, then that's perfectly fine. But for us, it's just to continue to keep that contact with our customer base so we can continue to at least keep where we are, but hopefully be able to progress from here.
Ken, what are your thoughts on marketing in this time? Are you changing your messaging? Are you increasing, decreasing? How are you handling that from Affordable Loc standpoint?
So we have a third-party company that does our social media for us. We're not able to increase or decrease, so we're keeping steady with the amount that we're putting out there, but I think the message has changed. Something we've talked about on the 4 o'clock call also is, everything becoming different, the way people carry themselves after this is going to be over. They're not going to want to touch things. They say people are not going to shake hands anymore. So it's the same thing with hardware. They're not going to want to touch it as much as they used to, even though it may or may not be an issue. So we're focusing marketing on antibacterial hardware, touchless hardware, door operators where you can wave your hand and it opens. But I think you got to stay in contact with your customers. You got to keep them top of mind, who you are, and when we come out of this on the other side, we got to be stronger and better.
Stacy, your perspective on marketing, it sounds like you're very much on the automotive side and doing a lot of work with, as you were saying, I guess car dealerships, auction houses. So
Yeah,
how
so
does that?
auction houses. So typically, I don't have to do much advertising because I'm almost contracted in. But I can tell you from 2008 and from times when my auctions have dropped for one reason or another, that yeah, typically I'll amp up. Now my advertising is much more grassroots. Much of y'all probably know I don't have a social media presence. I don't do much on the internet. I don't even have a website for my business. But mine's much more grassroots, and that's what I push to locksmiths when I go around and do training and teach them, is that yeah, the Facebook can reach a lot of people, and the internet can reach a lot of people with just a few clicks on the keyboard. But like you said, shaking hands or whatever we're going to do going forward, that will get you a lot of business. And it's not even from that person that you're shaking hands or touching elbows with or whatever we're going to do. It's with the people that they tell about shaking hands with you, and so on and so forth. And it goes out. And so I'm telling that to guys that I'm talking to now in the area. I say, go out and yes, of course, talk to your dealers. If they're not calling you, and your repo companies or your little car lots, if they're not calling you because they ain't got anything, that doesn't mean you don't go by. I mean, even if you don't have a lot of service calls to run, go out, get in the truck in the morning and go out, start making some rounds, drop off cards at places you've been to before. It's not going to hurt anything. Just go in and touch base. Just ask them, hey, can I duplicate a house key for you? Whatever. You do those little things. Like you said, when everything gets back to comfortable, you're going to be first in their minds. They're going to have to go out and buy those cars to turn around and sell them. Everybody's going to get their stimulus checks or whatever they're going to do, or get their jobs back or whatever. And when the market turns back on, we all got to be ready.
Yeah, I think at this point, it's not about trying to sell customers. It's just trying to keep that relationship going. Calling them, seeing how they're doing. Making sure their families are safe and healthy. That's huge right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think Stacy, you're saying the same thing. You're very much, like you said, grassroots, kind of in-person process. If it's on social, if it's digital through email, or if it's phone calls or in person, whatever it is, but just kind of maintaining a continual flow, not just stopping and letting customers ask, are you still in business? Are you still providing service? But being already up front and having that conversation proactively, I think is a definite smart move. Market diversification. This is a conversation we kind of talked about last week with the panel that we had. So typically speaking, in the locksmith and security business, you either have a company that does everything under the sun and serves all kinds of different markets. And when we say that, we're talking about new construction, maybe having retail application, serving mostly residential or mostly automotive or mostly commercial. But you have a lot of diversity there. But then you have some folks very much like Stacy, who is very much in the automotive world. So the question that I'm posing to the panel is, what are your thoughts on market diversification and thinking, well, should I maintain a percentage of my income in different markets in case there is disruption for the future, and how do I prepare for that? How do I start planning for that? So I'll toss that up to anybody that wants to jump in first.
Okay, well, I can jump in on that for just a moment. For us, like I said, we're from a small town, so there's not. Now, if it had been me and I were living in a big town, I would probably more on the lines of Stacy. I'd probably primarily focus on automotive, just simply the fact that I really enjoy automotive. Matter of fact, most of the automotive I'm able to do today is actually due to Stacy and his father Jim for their help at Just Cars, and I was so prepared to come down in a couple of weeks, and yeah. So anyway, but with that, being in a small town, I basically learned everything. So I learned commercial, residential, automotive. Been very heavily getting into safe tech work. Um, and now I'm just training my individual guys with us. Nick, he's now become pretty much our automotive guru guy for us, and Michael, my brother-in-law, is becoming more of the commercial line guy for us. I'm still doing the all-around stuff, but I've been focusing a lot more on safes. I really enjoyed learning something new as far as that goes. But then I also mentioned about we did get our alarm license for the state of North Carolina. So we were looking to possibly expand into the alarm and security. Now I'm actually getting calls for that, but I have not been able to focus on that because it's brand new. And with that, without having someone on hand that knows the stuff really well, I'm a little hesitant to just jump right in as far as that goes. But that's something we will, work on as things start coming back around. But for us, I feel like we had to be very well diversified because there's not enough of each of those things in our area just to focus primarily on one versus being in a much heavier populated area.
Ken, Stacy, thoughts?
Well, diversify. Yeah, like you said, I'm very streamlined. My business is geared towards one very specific purpose. So my diversity, I do diversify in these times, and it goes back to the education thing. I diversify in the sense that I take time and I tackle something that maybe I haven't tackled in a long time so that I get more comfortable with it. Or more realistically, I tackle something that's new that I think is possible. Along those lines, I will take some little financial business risks, maybe buy some little programmer or buy some little tool or buy some little key blank that I want to try out and see for its viability. Again, goes back to, hey, when we turn this back on, maybe I'm going to have some insight on some little tool or some little thing that I can buy somewhere that's going to allow me to produce keys for a much cheaper rate or much faster rate or whatever however it advantages your business. But a lot of the guys in my area that do diversify a little bit, that do a little bit of everything, they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're going out and reaching out into those markets that they've been dabbling in, like Waldo was saying, something that hey, I'm really interested in safes. This is a good time for me to research tools and research where to find an old safe to work on. Maybe go talk to some customers, talk to another locksmith. Say, hey, we got some time here. Why don't we get together for coffee across the table from each other, or wide table,
Very wide table.
wide table, and let's go work on a car together. Let's go, reach out to those guys too. We all want to, feel connected. So let's feel connected, but at the same time, work on our businesses together.
So really kind of focus on some industry networking, making sure that
Absolutely.
you
Why
have.
not? It's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity. I mean, if you're stuck at home and you're in a place where you really just can't leave, then reach out this way, electronically or something. And like we're doing here, reach out to guys, whether they're in your neighborhood or they're on the other side of the planet, and say, hey, can we get together and maybe 3 or 4 of us get together and have a discussion? I'll bring a couple of locks in from out in the truck, and can we talk about these and improve our knowledge on them, and you tell me what you know about it and I'll tell you what I know about it, and go back to the days when locksmiths weren't afraid to share information with each other.
There you go. Community sharing of information and just making each other stronger, either on the technical side or on the business side, right? You can definitely
just on the friendship side, up on the friendship side. I mean, reach out to a guy that in town that you've gotten sideways with, and it goes back so far you can't even remember why you're sideways with him anymore. And go, what were we fighting about? What was the deal? Let's put all that crap behind, man. Look at what's happening in the world. Let's put all that crap behind and let's go work on a car together. Let's go look at this commercial site together and tell me your thoughts.
I hear you. Ken, what are your thoughts on market diversification? I know you're looking at kind of taking on some new things right now.
Well, I don't know if they're new things. We're pretty diverse in what we do. I think getting better at marketing those things and training our staff on those things is right now. On the other side, we can just get out there and start doing it.
Very, very cool. So here's my one of the last two questions that I'll have for you. When you're talking about, and President Trump is supposed to be releasing some information today about how they're going to start rolling out the reopening of a lot of the countries, the country that is not as hard hit as others. But here's my question. Based off of your current business model, based off of your current understanding of the health of your business, what are the things that you're going to start measuring or start watching to know when your business is coming back to life or coming back to the state that it was before?
I want to get into college. I hope they don't open it sooner than good.
Ken, hold on just a second. I can barely hear you. Waldo, I may need to get you to mute your microphone. So, there you go. Ken, go ahead.
It's fun having the kids home all day, isn't it? So what I was saying is, I hope they don't open the country prematurely. If they do and the virus starts spreading again, we're going to be locked up for another couple of months. It's not a good thing. So I hope they're smart about what they do. But for us, we watch, the metrics that we watch are how many service calls a day we run, and the sales volume, how much per invoice, how much each truck is generating, how much each store is generating. So we're watching those numbers all the time. So when this thing does turn around, hopefully we'll see it pretty quick, and the phone will start ringing like normal, and the guys will keep running like normal.
Yeah. I know that's one of the conversations, and that's actually one of our topics today on our 4 o'clock business meeting call is about KPIs and metrics and understanding how you can kind of track the health of your business, because if you don't know where you were before this started, you don't know what's happening on a day-to-day basis, then it's going to be hard to understand when it's coming back or how to adapt back, especially for anybody that's had to lay anybody off or had to kind of shorten their staff. Is how do you know when things are coming back to the kind of the normalcy? Stacy, what are your thoughts on that? What are some of the metrics or some of the things that you're paying attention to say, hey, this is how I know business is coming back?
I look historically, for one thing. I've got 25 some odd years now, so I can look back at 2008. I can look back at other times throughout my career when we've had some shakeup, 9/11, things like this, where we don't know what's going to happen after the fact. And like we say, we all assume normalcy, whatever we want to call that. Again, if that's touching elbows to say hello, we all expect normalcy to return. But for me as somebody who's focused on automotive, I'll tell you what I'm watching, and it's good and it's bad. What I'm watching are the commercials on television. Commercials from Chevy and Nissan and Mitsubishi and all of these companies who are going, oh, just give the cars away. Just give them away. We need people. We're in trouble. We need money. We need money. Even if it's just the promise of money, we need money. So give the car away. Don't make them pay for 4 months, 6 months, whatever. Give them 8, 9, 10 years of financing. And historically, again, going back historically, that has not worked out for it's worked out for us locksmiths, definitely worked out for us automotive locksmiths. Let me tell you that. When Mitsubishi did 000, I got so tired of doing Mitsubishis after about 6 months after that happened, because they gave away those cars and said, don't pay for them for 6 months. Next thing you know, I was every third car I did was a Mitsubishi. And I'm afraid and not afraid. I mean, honestly, it's going to make me a lot of money. But when this all gets turned on, the normalcy is going to feel comfortable for a few minutes. But I'm afraid that more likely what's going to happen is we're going to have some massive financial issues that are going to come out of it. And because of that, for me, basically working in the repossession auction industry, it's going to be a landfall. I mean, or a windfall. I mean, it's going to be a huge influx of work, and my guess is it's going to be a lot of very, very new cars, because again, if they're giving away 2020s right now, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year from now, when the repossession starts, it's all going to be those new cars, because those people, they're barely going to be getting their jobs back in some cases.
So because of the
Oh, lost you. Oh, you there?
The Loc-Doc studio.
Nope, there you go. Oh, somebody's got something. I think his mic died.
Batteries are cheap, Chad.
I think there's a microphone on his computer.
No, he's got a wireless.
Yeah, I know. Turn the one on the computer. Come on, we ain't got you yet.
Aaron's coming to the rescue. We'll just talk amongst ourselves. It's okay.
Might as well. Were you gonna say something to the effect?
You got it, Ken. You got it. We're still trying to cut down on our battery consumption here, just because we're trying to watch our costs. No, it's I guess what I was saying is from that perspective, your business. It sounds like your business model, and it may be very similar to a lot of other locksmith businesses. Is it's very centralized with kind of base contracts, right? So your kind of metrics of that is going to be based off of their business metrics as well.
Right, and that's and so yeah, my business and how much I do is very much dictated by the repossession industry and the auction industry and all of that, and so that's again. My understanding of our finances on a national scale is that we can't run banking without repossession.
Yeah.
So all of that shut off right now. Banking is on the edge of shutting off, and if they tried to shut banks off, there'd be mass panic. But repossession is basically shut off at this point, and I know it's going to come back. It's just, when will it come back, and with how much ferocity is it? I know it's going to be aggressive. I know from, again, past experiences that there's going to be a lot of repossession from something like this, and there's going to be a lot of car keys to be made. Sure. In my venue, and hopefully it trickles down also to guys that just have one or two repo yards, and then from there it passes through me, and once I make the key for them at the auction, maybe they go down to the local dealership, and then the local dealership locksmith makes another duplicate for it, and then they sell it, and it's just the natural progression. Just when is that going to start? And how crazy is it going to be when it starts? Well,
and I would kind of state that, going back to the conversation that we were having earlier, if your business is based off of a model like that, so every business is going to be based off of economic either booming or downturn, one way or the other, right? So if you're in the business model of doing I know there was a lot of people that stayed very, very busy when the housing market fell through, because they were doing people were doing massive revenue numbers based off of doing repossessions and foreclosures on homes. And same thing would go true with in the automotive area as well. So it's understanding that, and understanding when the housing market came back, then that area of the business just dried up and went away. So being very diversified in what you're into, so that you can make sure that you're not basing your entire business on that one thing, because when that one valve gets shut off, then that may, like you said, Stacy, that's something that could be right now, and you may see that for the next 90 days, where the rest of the economy starts to pick back up in a different way based off of the stimulus or money coming back in, and so you don't actually see those that part of your business come back for later on down the line. Waldo, I want to toss it over to you on that. What are you watching in your business to know, hey, things are kind of coming back? Or I know you mentioned earlier the phones were kind of busy for you today, but on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis, how are you monitoring that?
So I think which is important with any business, and I'm sure Ken and Stacey are probably, and you guys down there in Charlotte, Loc-Doc, are very familiar with numbers. Numbers are key, I believe, in all this, and just really looking at the numbers for each week. So we meet every week and we talk about the numbers. So we set goal projections for the month, and we break it down week by week. So we're really looking at the numbers week by week now. Since things have changed, we're trying to figure out this is new for us. So we're trying to figure out what is our break even point, where does, because now it's completely different. So now we're actually having to figure this out, where up until this point, we've just been trucking along. We've been going and going and going, and just making new projections and bigger numbers and moving forward. But now everything is retracted back. So now we're trying to figure out and just watch those numbers. So as we go through the week, we're just going to look at those numbers each week and just sort of see where they start picking up. And as those numbers start coming back, aside from phone calls, I mean, phone calls and traffic is one thing. It's actual completed jobs that get you the money, that get you the numbers. So really looking at those numbers week to week are going to help you to decide, hey, can we afford to bring someone back? Can we afford to hire somebody back?
Yeah.
It looks like pretty good at this point. So let's really continue to focus on and look at the numbers from week to week versus the amount of traffic. Because even though we had a ton of calls today, that doesn't mean we have a ton of jobs to do, because a lot of them call just wanting quotes.
Sure.
And we're still quoting our jobs like normal. And they may not like that. I don't really know what other locksmiths are doing. I really don't care what they're doing because we're still running by our own model, and that's what we're going to continue to do. But it's really just looking at those numbers and paying attention to what those numbers are doing.
Yeah, I've started a new book. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, and it really documents a lot of information on understanding the difference between lead and lag measures and how to monitor that throughout your business. So just because you don't always want to look at revenue, you don't always want to look at that part of it because you don't know what actually got you there. So that's looking at revenue is a rearview mirror angle. And so you've got to look at some other measures so that you can know how that is going to continue to project moving forward. Ken, what are your thoughts? What are you watching and going to start measuring to know when things are coming back?
Well, you already asked me that, but
I did?
Yeah.
Was that when my microphone wasn't working?
It might have been.
No. So what did you say? Because I wasn't paying attention apparently.
We're watching how many calls come in, how many dispatches get set up.
Yes. Okay.
The volume of dollars per invoice, the dollars per week, the dollars per service tech. So we watch all those metrics. And
Gotcha.
So we'll see it pretty quickly.
So in closing, I'll toss one last question out to everybody. What is the upside? What is the positive? What is the thing that you're working on right now, either in your business, that you can say, hey, this is going to be the positive implication, or this is the value add, the benefit that I'm learning through this process, so that we're not just always focused on the negative, but we're actually focusing on what is the positive outcome that we're seeing through this process? Who wants to take? Okay. Waldo, you want to take that one?
All right, yeah. So with that, I'm going to be real with y'all for a minute. Earlier this week, I was throughout this whole sort of thing, I've been struggling a lot as a business owner because this whole thing has made me think about things I thought I would never have to think about and do things I was never hoping to ever have to do. And so with that, the amount of stressors in this whole ordeal has been completely insurmountable. And it's really affected me in a sense, not as Debbie Downer, but just from a perspective, not what was me, but how am I going to work through this? How are we going to work through this? And learning and trying to stay positive during this time and not letting, my frustrations and anxieties and fears be known to my staff and employees as far as that goes, and putting them down in the dumps as well. Really just sort of being that positive, motivational leader that I think that we need to be during this time. Not to be unreal with them. I mean, be real. I mean, be transparent, but at the same time, be that positive reinforcement. Hey, we're all going to get through this together. We're all going to walk through this together. This is not, individualized. This is everybody. And we're going to work through this and find a way through this. And when we do, if you can stick with me and fight and make it through this, we are going to come out much better on the other side than we are right now. And just really reiterating that, getting them to really be on board with you through this process is really just what I've been taking away from it, and really trying to continue to bring on daily. And we'll have a meeting tomorrow morning. We actually, because this COVID stuff, we have not been meeting in person. We've been doing Zoom, house party meetings and stuff like that. But tomorrow we're actually going to get together, have some Chick-fil-A biscuits and talk about the future and just enjoy some fellowship with one another before we hit the grind. Really just sort of get that connection, that feeling, and that powerful just connection there to really jump back into what we're doing.
Stacy, what are your positive takeaways from this?
You know, it's sometimes it's hard to find them. You know, you can't watch the news too much. You watch the news too much, man. It's hard to put a smile on your face. But the positive takeaways for me are, like I said, it gives us an opportunity to step back and look at your business from a different angle. Step back and look at your van from a different angle. Is your van clean? I mean, if you got time, clean it. You know, why not? You got nothing else to do. It reinforces your business. It makes it look more professional. I mean, everything from little things like that to things that you've been meaning to get to get them done. Whether it's sweeping the floor in the office, or it's replacing the sign out front, or it's buying a new truck. Hell, I'm looking at buying a new truck in the middle of all of this, because I've got I needed a new truck right in the middle of it. Damn it, if it wasn't the worst timing of all, that I needed a new truck, and it's going to take me some work to get it. But don't find yourself being sedimentary. Don't find yourself moping or sitting back and going, you know what, it's all going to come crumbling down. Don't do that. Use the time and go out and get up every day and try to find some semblance of productivity, so that you feel good at the end of the day, and you'll get up and do it again the next day. And before you know it, it's all going to be over, and we're all going to be going so fast and sweating so hard that we're going to be just pissing and moaning for a vacation.
I hear you, Ken. What are your positive takeaways through this? What is the positive thing that you've learned through all the process?
So, you know, I'm going to echo a lot what Waldo and Stacy said, but I think going through this, you got to be a leader. You got to show your people, be positive. You know, as far as the takeaways, we're working on cleaning the showrooms, painting, taking care of inventory, straightening all that out, making sure we have everything on the shelf that we need, taking inventory in the trucks, making sure the guys are stocked the way they need to be, making sure the guys are cleaning their trucks, like Stacy said, inside and out, so that when we do come out on the other side of this, we're ready to go. But we're working on marketing now, so that, you know, hopefully people will get that message, and we'll come out of this better than we were.
Most definitely. I know our company here, we have really turned on training heavily. We had a company-wide training on door operators yesterday, because we want to be prepared for that. We believe that's going to be a massive thing coming out of this, that people are going to want to have contactless openings. And so we're doing everything we can to prepare for that, and prepare for the influx of that coming out of it. I see some comments on the chat below. I see relationship communication is extremely important during this time. It's time to work on your marketing plan and business-to-business relationships. C.S. Murrison, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has had several comments on here. It says 4 Disciplines of Execution is a fantastic book, and tough times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Let's see, we are using this time as a breather as well. Do things we usually don't have time to do. So it seems like that's kind of the theme in a lot of ways. If you have some time, take that time to get it prepared. If that's not going to be a major negative impact on your business, so that you can be prepared, because it will come back. Things will come back, and I think, as Stacy just said, we're going to be flipping that conversation quickly to going, man, I wish we could get a break and take a vacation. And so how do we maintain that and monitor that? And how do we start maybe preparing for how we're going to hire? Maybe that's something that we want to start thinking about. The job market is going to be wide open here in a very short amount of time. And how are we going to manage our hiring processes? If that's something that we're interested in growing in, that's something that you can get better at as business owners and leaders. So very cool there. Appreciate all of the feedback on the comments below. Appreciate you guys joining us for the conversation today. Just as a reminder, we're hosting a daily business call. We're calling it the business meeting. Ken, what's the website for that?
I think it's business meeting dot something. Don't put me on the spot like that.
Ken is yes, businessmeeting.online. You can check that out. It is a free open forum. We have anywhere between 15 and 35 business leaders on there every day at 4 o'clock Eastern time, just to encourage each other, challenge each other, and grow together and try to make lemonade through this time. And right now, today, our conversation is going to be all about KPIs, key performance indicators and metrics, and how you understand the health of your business and how you can improve that. So anybody that is watching is welcome to join that. We appreciate everybody's attending and viewing today. If you're coming to the end of this, go ahead and share it so other people can see it as well on whatever platform you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Ken, Waldo, Stacy, thank you for your time today. Thank you, HL Flake, for hosting this, and we'll see you next Thursday at 2 o'clock right here on the same channel.
Thank you, Chad.